are here today with Trish Robichaud, and she is an amazing motivator I have found over the years. She's done many seminars with us, and I'm so excited that she's here today. She has many talents and things that she does for people. She is a disability awareness coach, a maximum life and healthy business coach, as well as an author, an advocate for disability and illness, including invisible illness, and a motivational speaker. So Trish, we are so happy that you're here today to talk with us about recovery, because we know that that is something that most all of us with invisible illnesses or other conditions have gone through. Sometimes it might be just recovering from a minor infection. Other times it might be a major surgery. But when you have any kind of illness and your immune system is not working properly, it always seems to take longer to recover than the healthy person next door. And that can become very frustrating.
Mm-hmm. To say the least. Thank you so much for inviting me to come and chat with you for Invisible Illness Week, Lisa. It's an honor to participate with your program, because I've always been such an admirer of the community that you've built with the technology over the years. I'm a technology junkie, so that's always been fascinating for me. In terms of our topic for today, one of the reasons why I chose to talk about recovery and to talk about it in terms of sometimes it can take a long time and it can just drive us insane how long it can take. But a couple of the reasons why I wanted to do that is because I had quite a lengthy recovery period last year. I was diagnosed in December of 2010. Yes, in 2010, I was diagnosed with heart disease. I had had some chest pains, and my doctor said, it's just stress, go on home. But because, and I did go home that day, but just because I just had a feeling that it was more than that, I went back 2 weeks later and said, you know what, maybe it is stress, maybe it's not, but we need to find out, because both of my parents had heart disease. And I needed to check into it. And sure enough, I had 5 blockages ranging from 70 to 95% in my arteries. I was ripe for a major coronary event. And so I'm really grateful I didn't have it. But the interesting thing was the timing of all this. Lisa, you've known me for years, and I don't know if you recall, at one point about 2 years ago, I was planning to have a gastric bypass surgery. I was planning to do the weight loss surgery, and I was quite excited about that. It took me a whole year to work through the process of getting qualified, and every single appointment and all the journaling you had to do and all the blah, 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 blah. Anyways, I had a surgery date, and it was February 2nd, Groundhog Day, 2011. And I was so pumped about that happening that when I was diagnosed with heart disease, less than 2 months before my gastric bypass surgery, I was devastated when I found out that my gastric bypass surgery was going to have to be canceled, because on February 22nd, 20 days later, I was booked for a quadruple coronary bypass. That, the news of requiring the surgery, this bypass surgery, was earth-shattering for me. Both my parents had heart disease. They both had a similar surgery in their 50s. My mom was only 52, my dad was 58, and I was only 47 at the time. Both my mother's parents lost them to heart disease. And so it's rampant in my family. And of course, I've been obese most of my adult life. So that has not helped to the situation, but certainly the fact that I needed the surgery at 47 years old was definitely some major genetics going on there. Anyways, long and short of it was, so much for the gastric bypass surgery. I had the coronary bypass surgery on the February 22nd of last year. And I have to tell you, I don't recommend the surgery for anybody. If you can avoid it, do it. It was the most painful thing that I have ever experienced in my life. When I woke up the day after the surgery, I couldn't even take a breath like this without agony pain, okay? The real fun part while I was in the hospital was having this nurse who was like a boot camp nurse, and she kept telling me, the big deep breaths, they don't hurt any more than the little wee breaths. And I went, and when did you have this surgery? But she pushed me, and so they get you up walking like the same day if possible. I couldn't get up and walk the same day because I have MS as well, and that wasn't happening while I was on this really nasty drug that some people have heard of, oxycodone. They had me on oxy when I woke up, and it took me like 2 days before cognitively I came around enough to say, please give me something else. So they switched me over to morphine, and from that point on, then my recovery started getting better. There was lots of walking at the hospital. You had to prove yourself before you could go home. But I was in and out in 5 days. Imagine, once upon a time, women stayed in the hospital for childbearing longer than that. Okay, so that's the beginning of this long-term recovery story.
Not only are you coping with MS and all these other issues, but then to be going through one of the most painful surgeries that anyone can have, whether they're healthy or chronically ill. And it could be a setup for anyone to really deal with a lot of emotions there.
It was a very emotional time. My husband was awesome. He was at the hospital from like morning until night. The nurses thought he was great because he was doing a lot of my caregiving while I was at the hospital. You know, that really helped. But in terms of the medications, I had to bring some of my meds from home because my injections for MS, they couldn't even get them at that short a notice. So I had to use my own meds. But yeah, the routines, everything. But now, that all being said, I want to say that my time in the hospital was actually not bad at all. Yeah, so I did a fair amount of meditational work before I went into surgery, and I have to tell you that if you can be proactive enough to do that before you have a major surgery, I can tell you that it really, really helps. When they were wheeling me off down the hall for the surgery and saying goodbye to my husband, I was smiling and he was crying. When they got me into the operating room, I was cracking jokes with the doctor before they put me out. I was that relaxed about having my chest cut open. Because I did the meditational work and the prayer work, and I'm giving it to God and visualizing the healing process, and I went into that surgery with an absolute 100% knowing that I was going to be fine, and that was so powerful. And so that carried forward into my hospital stay. I was in a good mood. I was feeling good. I was compliant. I was cooperative. It was when I got home. I think it was the you're not allowed to even check your email for 2 weeks. I think that was the first kick in the gut. All right. When you are like I am, as Lisa, I know that you definitely show tendencies for workaholism, all right, that we can just bury ourselves in our work because we love it so much. And going from that state to not even allowed to check my email for 2 weeks, that was like a huge shift outside of my comfort zone. I think for the first week, I didn't notice it as much because I was still in so much pain. I could barely move. But as the week started to drag on, I did start to, I had my husband, and here, these are some key pieces around managing a long-term recovery, some tips here. I set up my personal space in the living room in my recliner. So I made sure before my surgery that I had all of the little things that I like to have near me when I'm working or when I'm spending any leisure time. Things like, for example, next to me, I have a little tiny drawer unit that on the top drawer, it has my fingernail file, and it has my lotions, and it has the Q-tips and all the little things that I might use throughout the day for personal care. They were in the top drawer. And then in the second drawer, I had all of my treats, sugar-free candies, sugar-free chocolate, all of those little things to keep my mouth distracted because I am a foodie, right? So that was another piece. And then the third drawer down was miscellaneous items that I need, okay? And this is how I kept organized. And I also picked up a tablet eventually in the process so that I didn't have to have the laptop overheating on my lap when I was working. Tablets are awesome. But in terms of the progress with the recovery, wow, I gotta say, it was so slow. In my head, before I had the surgery, in my head, I figured 3 months recovery and I would be back to work. Reality, it was 3 months before I could get up from the chair by myself. So that was reality. And that was really disappointing. I think part of having a lot of difficulty with long-term recovery is also connected to having really high expectations of oneself, not having realistic comprehension. I really did not comprehend how long it was going to take. But I still managed to maintain my meditation practices, my morning prayers. And you know what? I gave myself permission, and this really helped. I gave myself permission to create a whole new routine for my life. So what time I got up in the morning changed. What I did with my time in front of the TV changed. My husband was awesome. He did all of the cooking for months after my surgery, waited on my hand and foot. I'm really blessed that he's retired, so he was available to do that. But it was still, I think it was probably about 2 months into the recovery that my depression started really kicking in. Now, I was diagnosed with major depression long before the MS. I was in my early 20s when I was diagnosed with depression, and that I come by genetically, obviously, because my mother was also lived with depression. But I think it was probably a couple of months before I started feeling really, really empty. I felt hopeless because I have done a lot of work on myself physically and mentally and emotionally over the last 5 years or so. And the truth of the matter is, 2 months outside of my surgery, all I could think about was both my parents had to have this surgery, and both of my parents were gone in their 60s. I've lost both of them in the last number of years. And I felt like I was definitely living in victim mode. All right. I felt controlled by my genetics. I felt betrayed by my body because I had done a lot of work of making healthy choices over the years. But then to find myself on the same path felt like I was in a trench, which was the path that my mother had had in her life with her health. And I felt like I was spiraling towards not living past 65. And so I went through this period of total powerlessness. And you know what? That's okay. It is okay. If when you're in a long-term recovery, you have days of depression, it's okay. Because we are not Superman, you know? Besides, I don't think I'd look too great in the tights. But we are definitely just average, we are human beings. And we can only handle so much. And depression is not the end of the world. I'll tell you, depression can be, absolutely. And I tell people this all the time in terms of my advocacy work, is depression can be a fatal disease. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But depression does not have to define your experience. It doesn't. You do not have to. You do not have to succumb, and I don't mean as succumb as in give in. I mean you do not have to fall into old behaviors. You don't have to. You can recreate your experience with depression. I personally have done that. I have learned for myself that the best strategy for coping with my depression is to let it happen and to see it as an ultimate self-care day and acknowledge that depression in my life serves a purpose. And one of the purposes, because I am a workaholic, depression in my life, the purpose it serves is it slows me down once in a while, even when I don't want to. And so I honor that by just going with it and giving myself permission to stay in bed if that's what I feel like doing today. But of course, in recovery from the heart surgery, I didn't have a lot of choice on some days about not getting out of bed. But but even in spite of the pain, the ongoing pain, the depression, the immobility, and that's what it came down to, because just everything moving, any kind of movement was really, really painful. So I was just focused on staying in one place to minimize the pain. But eventually at about 2 to 3 months, I started really feeling like I had this huge hole in my heart, metaphysically. Of course, now there was a hole in my heart in terms of all of those little suture things going on. But I also had brand new plumbing, and that was a lot to celebrate too. It was new opportunity and a potential for giving me more time to make some changes in my life.
Trish, when I was in the hospital and I was having a long recovery afterwards, I was there 8 days. And I remember going back and seeing the doctor and saying, what is wrong with me? I can barely get up and get a cup of coffee and get to the chair. And that's my, that's my event for 7 hours. And he said, for a healthy person, for every day you're in the hospital, consider a week of recovery. And that's for a healthy person. And so my 8 days there, if I had been a healthy person, would have immediately turned into 8 weeks of feeling before I even got some energy back. Now, when you're chronically ill, you can double or triple that. In some ways, I think that's helpful to know, so we don't expect too much out of ourselves, like you're saying, to give yourself permission to have those good days, those bad days. How do you find the balance between being realistically prepared for how long your recovery may be, and yet also not getting depressed about that fact, Can you comment a little bit on the balance between accepting reality and yet also remaining hopeful?
In terms of the balance, for me, yes, I went into it prepared, um, but I also gave myself permission to just let it be what it is. For me, I often use what I call my 1 year filter. So when I'm unhappy with what's going on right now, when I'm feeling like I'm not as responsive, or when I'm feeling like things aren't moving fast enough, um, I try to do, as they say, I play the tape forward to a year from now. And I try to see what difference it's going to make to my life a year from now in terms of today, whether I just go with it and take the day of rest, or whether that one task I wanted to get done today, I'm not getting to it. Well, okay, so a year from now, is it going to matter? How much is it going to matter? So to me, it's all about perspective, right? And so no matter how unproductive, and that was a very overpowering feeling for me as a workaholic, to be laid up in my recliner chair in the living room for months on end. Not being productive is a huge blow to my ego. So I needed to continually be reminding myself that this period of time was an investment in my future health. And just as in putting money in the bank for the future, giving myself the downtime and embracing it as an opportunity to be healthier a year from now. That was really important. The other piece, Lisa, I would say are distractions. Distractions are key strategies for getting you through the dark days. And let me share my distraction. About 3 months past my surgery, back up real quick, in about 4 months prior to the surgery, 5 months prior to the surgery, we had lost our most recent little fur buddy at home, our little Jack Russell. We had put him down because of cancer. And our house had been very quiet for a long time. But while I was in workaholic mode, I could handle him not being there. But when I was immobile in this chair for a long time, it became far more painful to me that the house was that quiet. And so I started whining to hubby that we need a dog. And I'm depressed because I had heart surgery, and oh my God, my business is going down the drain, and I need a dog. I knew that our home was going to be bringing in another dog eventually anyway. Just that I needed that dog now. And my husband saw that. And so we went out and we rescued a dog from the Humane Society, and my husband fell madly in love with Dudley. The two of them bonded, and they've been best friends ever since. But 2 days after we brought home Dudley, I said, wait a minute. I'm the one that wanted the dog, and you picked the dog, and he fell in love with you, and you guys are bonded. So, whiny old wife, I had heart surgery, and I'm depressed, and I need something to make me smile. And we went back out 2 days later and rescued another dog. And this one is mine, and he bonded with me, and so we each have our own dog now. And it's funny, it's like, where's your dog? I don't know, where's your dog? We have our own respective dogs. So bizarre. But anyways, in terms of distractions, it can be, hubby was, during those months that I was laid up, we downloaded every action-packed episode series that we could find, so that I had something to focus on, something to occupy my brain. And I think that's the biggest piece, Lisa, getting through a long-term recovery, for me anyway, and I'm sure for many people might be the answer, is actually the intellectual stimulation. Physically, you can't do squat. Physically, you're feeling completely beaten down, especially if it's a really long-term recovery. It took me 9 months, by the way, to get back to work. And even when I got back to work at 9 months, it took me another 3 months after that to ramp back up to my normal speed, like my normal capacity with work. But honestly, I think if there was a single most important thing that I used the process to getting through that long-term recovery, was the intellectual stimulation. Even if it meant just playing Mahjong on my tablet for hours at a time, or if it was reading or whatever, I needed to be continually feeding my brain or distracting my brain with challenges. Now, that being said, of course, there was many days over that course of that 9 months where the pain was too great to have the intellectual capacity to do anything aside from just moaning about the pain. I lied, I'm not really a moaner. Lisa, I hope that this has been helpful in terms of some tips and strategies for managing long-term recovery. It really is a continuum. And if I can sum up, all right, this one message that I would like people to take from this interview is that recovery is an ongoing process, all right? And it's not something that happens overnight. In fact, I in my books, it happens in 4 stages, okay? Stage number 1 is loads and loads and loads and loads of bad days, okay? That's stage 1. Stage 2 is loads and loads and loads of bad days sprinkled with the very odd good day, all right? Stage number 3 is half and half. It's getting to be still got lots of bad days, but you start experiencing a much, not just a sprinkling, but more of a strong shower of good days, so that they're almost interspersed equivalently. And then finally, your the fourth stage of that recovery continuum that I call, is just loads and loads of good days. And still the odd bad day, because we're always gonna still have bad days from time to time, because even though we've gotten past maybe this particular crisis that put us in recovery mode, we still have chronic illness of some kind. We still have invisible disability of some kind. So any other circumstances that might pop up that would cause a downslide in your capabilities, you're still vulnerable to that, even while you're recovering. So even while I was recovering from heart surgery, I still had bad MS days here and there. I still had good MS days here and there. But the recovery continuum that I'm trying to illustrate here is that it doesn't happen overnight. We have loads and loads and loads of bad days. Eventually, we start getting a sprinkling of good days. And when you get that sprinkling, celebrate that you are being sprinkled with good days, because that means you're moving through the continuum instead of staying in the bad days, all right? Eventually, you'll get to a place where there are more good days than bad days, and that is awesome. And then till finally you're getting to a place where the majority of your days are good days, just sprinkled with the odd bad days. So I guess it's kind of like a salt and pepper approach to the continuum of recovery.
So Trish, tell us a little bit about your website and what kind of things people can find there.
Okay, so first of all, my web address is changingfaces.com. And what are you going to find there? You are going to find life coaching. You're going to find business coaching, information on life coaching, information on business coaching, because not only do I coach people on lifestyle issues and lifestyle choices around living with chronic illness, but most specifically, I am very passionate about coaching entrepreneurs who live with chronic illness or disability. So, and my favorite topic, because I'm a techie junkie. My favorite topic in the world is teaching entrepreneurs with disabilities how to leverage technology to automate the repetitive processes in their businesses, how to automate as much as possible. And so I really enjoy that. That's a big piece. I also do motivational speaking. I'm available for engagements globally. Definitely been a huge joy in my life, being able to get up in front of an audience and hopefully make them laugh a little bit, and then most importantly, my mission, Lisa, is always to leave people with hope. And interestingly enough, that there's one of the little decorations you have in your office, and it means a great deal to me. It's very easy when living with chronic illness to go to hopeless mode. And it's really, really vital for me as a coach. It's my mission in life. It's the vocation that God has given me. So if anything brilliant comes out of my mouth, I don't need applause because it's not mine. He put it there. So that's the ultimate bottom line, that we all have a higher level of optimal health than we are currently living now. And that's really good news. Don't let it scare you. It's really an opportunity for ramping up things with your health. And anyways, I encourage you to drop by, come on over, even if it's just to come on over and book a consultation with me. Whether you're interested in coaching or you even know what it is, even if it's something that you really don't have a clue how it would fit in your life or what the purpose would be, and I encourage you to book a complimentary consultation with me, because I'd love to engage with you.
Thank you so much for being with us today, Trish.